This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, welcome everybody to week 3 of the Positive Psych class. And this week we're going to cover mindfulness. And there's several things that we're going to cover with that: mindfulness, breathing, and meditation. But before I get started, let me ask, what was your 1 minute of practice using growth mindset, process praise, or learner questions like? Anybody want to share? Yeah.
My sister was struggling with adding words, I guess, and getting good about performance and stuff like that. And I was trying to tell her, it's like saying you're so smart and you're all of those things. What was the other term? I said person's praise.
Person praise.
Person praise. Yeah, I told her you need to give yourself more credit about how far you've come because of the effort that you put in.
Okay, great. So she's sharing that for the people online that her sister was struggling at work, and instead of doing the usual process praise, you're so smart, really focusing on the actions she's taken up until now, like what she's accomplished, what she's done, and reminding her how far she's come, right? And those things will help her in the future. All right, anybody else? No, anybody online want to share? You can type in if you want to. Okay, so I have someone online saying that she used process praise when coaching her athletes, right? So that's huge. I think, again, children, athletes, people that you're directly working with and giving that immediate feedback to all the time. Great. All right, thank you for sharing. Okay. So the original founder of psychology, William James, said the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. No one is campus sui, or master of oneself, if he is not. An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence, right? And so he's talking about mindfulness, right? That discipline of being able to come back to your breath, come back to any single focus point that you're thinking of, and not let your mind just wander around. And the training I've received, we call it being pulled by a ring in the nose. So I think what's important to understand is that your thoughts all day long are leading you around, right? And then you're just at their mercy if they're leading you around. They could be good, they could be bad, but really the discipline of separating yourself from these thoughts and realizing they're just thoughts and I have a choice, right? Because one of the things that happens is we begin to believe all of our thoughts are true. One of my favorite bumper stickers is, you don't have to believe every thought, or it's something like every thought is not true, something like that. Just a reminder that, again, they're neural impulses. Okay, so the universe is filled with beautiful things that you probably stepped on while staring at your phone. So phones are a really great challenge for us being mindful, right? And one of the really important things to think about is that phone is a dopamine hit. Every ping, every ding, every time you go to check Facebook, you're getting a rush. And that can be an addiction. It can be something that, it's so funny for me because I'm older. I had a Super Bowl party and I invited some younger people there, and they sat on their phone the whole time. They never really watched the game. And I was like, wow, like they never saw what was happening, right? And they weren't really interacting with each other. And when I see people out, they're all on their phone, they're not really talking to each other. And so I think that's like, it's so hard to be mindful, and then you add this thing that's just really preventing you from being mindful. And you feel focused and you feel like you're in the moment, but you're totally ignoring reality. You're in some, you're in a virtual reality, basically. Okay, so even without your phone, right, I think this is a big challenge. Is your mind full of worry, things you have to do, or are you present in what you're doing, where you are? I think one of the big things for me is when I'm walking across the bridge here to get to school, right? Am I noticing the water? Am I noticing the weather? Am I noticing the buildings, or am I caught up in what I've got to do? Okay, so Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a very famous Vietnamese Buddhist, he has a great book called Peace in Every Step. It was a really critical book in my life. He says, mindfulness is the energy of being aware and awake to the present moment. It's the continuous practice of touching life deeply in every moment of daily life. To be mindful is to be truly alive, present, and at one with those around you and what you're doing. Through mindfulness, we can learn to live in the present moment instead of in the past or in the future. Dwelling in the present moment is the only way to truly develop peace, both in oneself and in the world. Okay, so those of you online, grab something to eat. We're going to use like a raisin, a cranberry, I'm not quite sure what's in there, an almond, it's a great one, a piece of fruit, anything. We're going to pass out one of these things. You can just pick whatever you want. Yeah, if you have any allergies, you can obviously, or if you're already eating, you can like eat what you're eating, that's fine. But I want you just to step away and grab something, and it can even be a glass of water. That can work too. And what I want you to do is to take the object, the food, the water, the drink, whatever, in your hand and really feel it for a moment and smell it. And then put it in your mouth and really feel what it feels like to be in your mouth. So again, feeling it, smelling it, putting it in your mouth, tasting it, feeling what it feels like in your mouth, eating it. So, you can open up the comments online so I can see what they're saying. Okay. So what was it like? Anybody willing to share what they had and what?
These grapes are so awesome. Like, they taste so good.
What do they smell like?
They smell like just fresh.
Just
Like,
fresh?
yeah, just like.
Did anybody get any weird smells or weird tastes or textures? Like maybe you've never thought about it before? Like maybe how papery an almond is, or like maybe how the grape smells like earth or leather or something that you just like didn't pay attention to before? Yeah?
I think almonds are more flavorful.
The almond was more flavorful.
Almonds for me, I like almonds, but almonds for me are like super fast. I'm a rush and I need like a little bit of food in my stomach and a little bit of protein and pepper. I'm gonna grab a handful, shove it in my mouth, and run out the door and chew on, like run at the edge of the grape. And to like sit and eat one, like think about it.
Okay, yeah, so interesting. I'm the same way. Like almonds are. Oh wait. Mute everybody so we don't get feedback. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, that's just like it's almost like a hygiene. Like I just gotta function here, and it's never something I just sit and enjoy. And then when you do, it's like wrinkly, creamy. Like it's just all these different things that I'm not paying attention to when I normally eat them. And then online, I just have to share this. These are great. A Twizzler has an odd texture. That's hysterical. I noticed the odd texture of a dried cranberry. Bananas have a weird texture. Everybody's noticing a sweet taste, refreshing, cold, tart, sour, squishy but tasteful. There's the one at the bottom, oatmeal is bumpy and sweet, right? That's another one I probably just eat without even thinking. Okay, so mindfulness is something that we can bring to eating. We can bring it to everything. We can bring it to walking. Okay, so why is mindfulness effective? There's three components to this theory. There's the intention, which is also called the compass of your heart, and it's why you're doing what you're doing. So sometimes when I sit for meditation, I'll just say a quick statement really quick of why I'm doing it, right? Because I want to be a more patient person today, because I want to, I want to bring good things to the world or whatever. And it just sort of sets the intention, right? So setting your attention is important. And then the attention is what you're paying attention to. And the attitude is how you're doing it, with acceptance, openness, curiosity, right? So there's three things that are going on. So this intention, you're paying attention, and you have an attitude, an open attitude. Okay, so what does mindfulness do? Just like positive emotions, another good thing is it decreases anxiety and stress. It increases heart rate variability, and this is a single marker for health. This is how your heart changes rhythm on your in-breath and your out-breath, and they use it in research to understand a higher heart rate variability has higher health. It also increases the immune response, and it activates the prefrontal cortex in your brain. It helps with self-regulation. So especially with children, mindfulness, and they're introducing a lot of mindfulness programs and meditation programs, really drastically help self-regulation. And it's like, again, going to the gym for your brain, meditation and mindfulness. So you're exercising that self-control muscle, right? And building it up. It also gives you emotional, cognitive, and behavioral flexibility. And part of that is, in our lives, our monkey brain, our primal brain is really geared to respond to good for me, bad for me, nothing in the middle, right? This is good for me, this is bad for me. So we tend to approach things that are good for us, and maybe sometimes like a little too much, and avoid things that are negative, right? And that's not a great pattern to be in, because maybe there's some constructive feedback that's difficult to hear that would help us grow. Maybe cookies, eating cookies all the time isn't the best way to go for your health. So what happens is when you develop mindfulness, and meditation, you develop something called the gap. And that is, instead of this habitual good for me, bad for me, there's this gap where you're just like, what is it? What is it? And so this moment of curiosity can open you up to see something that you couldn't see before. So think about the almond example that you gave, Meg. You know what I mean? So that the habitual is just like, I'm feeding myself. And then when you open up, it's like, oh, almonds, all these things, right? And I think we know people are complex. And so it's really easy to judge them. Good for me, bad for me. This is my friend. This is not my friend. And this is a way to see things more, things are more complex. And it also helps with values clarification. The more meditation and mindfulness you do, I know for me, it's easier to say, this is not something to do that's taking me on the path I want to go on. So when people ask me to do something, or there's, if I'm not mindful, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, or I'm doing something like, for example, this is a big one. At night, I want to relax and be on my phone. I just want to, flip through Facebook and see what's going on really quickly. But does that really bring me the thing that I value? No, actually reading the books on my bedside stand would bring a lot more value to my life. But okay, so for the present moment sensory experience, we use built-in cues to trigger moments of mindfulness. So and Thich Nhat Hanh in his book talks about a lot of things, like you hear a bell ring. One that was particularly good for me was you see the brake lights in front of you. Like every time you see the brake lights, like it's just like a reminder. But anyway, you can set alarms to go off intermittently throughout the day, inviting you to notice your breath and just to be mindful. As you hear each alarm or notice or you see it, notice your immediate response. Irritation, reluctance, annoyance. That happens to me. I set an alarm and then I'm irritated when it goes off because I'm busy doing something else and I don't want to do the thing that I previously thought was valuable. But it's okay. See it as simply a wandering mind. Focus on your breath for a few moments and move on with the day. Sometimes that happens to me at the end of my meditation practice, like especially when I get around like 8 minutes if I'm doing 10. I start getting like, oh, I got things to do. And I feel myself getting irritated and I don't really want to finish. And I'm, Okay, so use the same technique with unplanned interruptions, which I mentioned earlier. The phone ringing. That's a great, like we always go to answer the phone, right? There's no problem in sitting there and letting it ring, hearing the ring, and disattaching that need to answer it, right? Again, that's being led around by the nose. It's being kind of controlled in a way. I don't know how you guys study with phones and Facebook. I didn't have that, and it was distracting enough. I cleaned my bathroom. My house was really clean. And now I just think, oh my God, how do you do that? I even in my office, I can't have any emails come up on my screen because it's a constant distraction, and I set aside a specific time to go through all of my emails. Okay, so stimulating relaxation. So now we're going to talk about breathing. Breathing is one really quick intervention you can do to literally alter your physiology, right? So slow rhythmic breathing activates a physiological calming response. And I learned some great ones this weekend. Researchers have found breathing over a 10-second cycle maximizes the calming. So in for 5, and I do this with my kids. And I do the fingers counting so they can see. But just doing that for a minute can make a huge difference. And I learned some ones for children this week, really good, and you can make up your own, but like you're shooting a bow and arrow, so you and like do that, and the kids do that. Or like there was one where they did very similar with Spider-Man, and you're like throwing the Spider-Man web, which is so the kids really get into it. What was the other one? I think like flapping your wings like a bird, 5 and then down 5, but you're breathing with them. And just think of any animal and you can make one up. But anyway, really great to do. Another one I do that I learned from occupational therapists is to take a silly straw and a bowl full of water, and you put a little dish soap in it, and you have them blow in the water, and it blows up a bubble mountain, and they're just blowing out and blowing out and blowing out. So it's like a good activity to do before bedtime or before you're doing any sort of transition. It just calms them down, right? And then they can pop the bubbles and start over again. So let's do that. We're going to do 1 minute. I don't have my phone on me. Will you be the timer? Okay. So we're going to do 1 minute. And you can pick whichever cycle you like. I'm going to do 5 and 5. Okay, is everybody ready? We'll do it for 60 seconds. Here we go. Start. Okay, stop. All right, how was that? Yeah, the ticks on the clock got louder, right? We were all quiet. You're paying attention to it more. Anybody else? Help you count.
Do actually for a second.
Yeah, right. I know. I was also noticing for me, it's really hard when you have the adrenaline of being the speaker and then needing to calm down because my body's like, no, you need to be on. Okay, so how do you feel after that minute? More relaxed? Yeah. Okay. Elaine says, give me more. Relaxing, clarifying, peaceful. Okay, good. There's one more at the bottom. I felt more relaxed and less much muscle tension. Okay, good. Okay, so you've done two activities so far. You've got the mindfulness, which is again just being aware and present of your surroundings, and then you've got the mindful breathing. And in your handout book, I have an article from the Huffington Post, Change Your Breathing, Change Your Life. And it's just a little more detail for you to follow up with after class to see some other ways to do it. Okay, so next we're going to talk about meditation. And I want to start off by saying, this is funny, when I was being raised, meditation was thought to be like how the devil takes your mind. It was thought to be very anti-religious and just very strange. Everybody thought it was very strange. It's very common now, and I think people are over that hump.
A lot of people still feel that way, it seems like.
Yeah, do they?
Depending on just the cultural populations that you speak with, that's been my experience in training in meditation workshop, that people think, oh no, that's the devil's work.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I am here to tell you, meta-analytic review shows the effect of mindfulness meditation helps to not shorten your telomerase, which is the ends of your DNA. So as we get older, they unwrap, and meditation actually helps that not happen, right? And we know meditation is linked to a ton of benefits. For depression, exercise. Doing exercise is better than pharmaceuticals. Meditating is doing the gratitude intervention, using your character strengths. There's a lot of things that can have like immediate effect on happiness and depression, clinically measured. So anyway, just want to let you know what year this is, 2013. There's a lot of research showing meditation does have, and again, I think of this as exercise for the brain. It's the same as going to the gym.
Can you repeat that? It helps what?
So your telomerase it's the ends of your DNA. I think they're called telomeres, actually. Telomerase is the activity. Telomeres are the ends of the DNA, and as we age, they start to unwrap, and they start to shorten. Because they unwrap, they start to shorten. And so mindfulness, people who do that actually have less of that unwrapping, less of that shortening, right? Which would translate to a longer life. But when your DNA is reproducing, the more unwrapped it gets, then the less of a great job it does reproducing. Okay, so I'm going to teach you really quick, a couple minutes, just a simple meditation. And we're going to focus our attention on the breath, and our mind is going to wander. Guaranteed, mine will probably before yours. Don't worry about that. There's nothing wrong with you. That's what happens, and the discipline is coming back to the breath. And sometimes I'm gone, and okay, I remember, and I come back. I'm gone, I'm back, I'm gone, I'm back. Each meditation session is different. And sometimes, my meditation mentor, would say there's no bad meditation session. But that definitely I get out of there and I'm like, that was not a good one. But that judgment, right? That was not a good one. Well, I was there and I tried, and that was what it was today. So let go of any judgment you have about your mind. And I remember when I first started doing meditation, it was like, I realized my brain was like Niagara Falls. Like it was so overwhelming, the amount of thoughts that came in, or this constant radio chatter, right? So anyway, we focus on the breath, the attention wanders, like, oh, hey, that's what it's supposed to do. And then bring it back to the breath, right? And you may only stay there a couple of seconds and it wanders away again. But we're just going to do this, I think, for 3 minutes. Let me see how we're doing on time. Yeah, let's do 3 minutes. Okay. And Sanette, I'm going to ask you to be my timer. And actually, I don't know if the people online, I don't know if you really need to see me. I'll sit here. I don't know if you can see. I'm just going to sit in front of the class, kind of close to the microphone so you can hear it. So you just sit upright And I just put my hands on my knees, but again, whatever is comfortable, don't do anything that's not comfortable. And I think of my spine like, somebody's pulling a string through my spine. My head's sort of tilted down, but it just keeps my back erect. And I look out about 6 to 8 feet in front of me. If you feel more comfortable closing your eyes, you can. Different traditions do different ones. I've always learned with my eyes open. But anyway, just find a spot to fix your eyes on. And then you're going to time us? Okay. When? Okay, here we go. All right, how did that feel? Is it hard? Yeah, I went all over the world and back, but I kept coming back. I catch myself here and there and thinking about all sorts of stuff.
I was frustrated because at the end when you said time, my mind was wandering and I had to go back, so I didn't close out well.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm getting into the rhythm and actually doing it, and then time happens. It's like it almost takes me like 10 minutes to settle down sometimes. Okay, so I've got some comments online. I felt present. I was able to really tune into myself and just focus on my thoughts. I was able to feel my heartbeat slow down and an overwhelming sense of calmness. I felt more relaxed, less muscle tension. It felt long. That's right. But I could notice sounds around me like the train. Okay. Okay, I felt like I was entering sleep mode, but was still awake. I felt myself fading away from the world and falling into myself, right? And there's this balance that you've got to keep. We call not too tight, not too loose, right? So sometimes you can just get so loose that you're like almost asleep, and then too tight, you can't, so like kind of keeping in the middle, like it's that constant thing. And some more, there's a lot more advanced techniques or different techniques. And what I found it's useful is sometimes I find myself like really struggling to find that point, like I'm too, and I can't focus, and I'll just focus out. And then I kind of feel myself calm down, and then I'll bring my point down, right? So sometimes I just kind of need to see what's out there and then come down. So, I mean, you can just feel free to try what works for you. But again, the heart of it is coming back to your breath, right? And I have a quick video for you all. Whoops. Oh no. Oh no, this video is not working. Let me try to refresh the page.
Welcome to Los Angeles, where freedom radiates from every neighborhood, every body. You can feel it all around you, welcoming you, daring you to let loose. In LA, anything is possible. Feel the rush of being truly free.
Oh no. Okay. So we got the ad, but not the.
I saw the title of that rewiring your brain, and I actually like screenshotted something I saw you said Sunday on the internet, and it says you can rewire your brain to be happy by simply recalling three things, which we talked about. Simply recalling three things you're grateful for every day for 21 days.
Yeah, and I guess what I'll do is I'll just say a little bit about the video. This guy is I forget his name, but he's the head researcher up at University of Madison, Wisconsin, and that's the Dalai Lama, obviously. And one of the things that he did, and I read the book on this. It's called Train Your Brain, Change Your Mind. And basically, they took monks. He got together with the Dalai Lama. It was this long conversation about how do we use science to help people to relieve suffering, right? Because that's the tenet of Buddhism, is to relieve suffering. So how do we do this? And the researcher was like, well, let's put monks in the MRI machine and let's see what the effects of meditation were. And they found people who've been meditating on compassion for 20, 30 years. And they literally had a brain wave. And I don't think this is in this video, but it's in the book I read, that was out of range of what was thought humanly possible. They thought the equipment is broken, something is wrong. But literally they had rewired their brain to have, and it's something like a gamma wave, but it's like kind of an indicator of happiness, and it was just off the charts, right? So meditating on compassion is one way to do that. So any of these things that we're doing, and I think we've talked about in a prior class that most of what we do is unconscious, is habit. And so it's just you're rewiring for different habits, right? And sort of feeding into this is this idea of neuroplasticity. And, when I was going through college, I don't think this was really out there yet. It was really believed we were all kind of fixed. And now we know you literally can change the way it's like a muscle, and it's a neural loop. And if, like OCD, if you just grind a neural loop in your brain, it's hard to break out of. But we can stop that, and we can do another neural loop, a more productive one. And the really cool thing that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around is that as you start changing the structure of your brain, as you start working on that, you're doing things that actually make it easier to continue to do that when you're doing some of these exercises, right? There's this synergistic effect, and I think that's really probably explaining the broaden and build theory as how it happens in our brain. Okay, so this is an article by Barbara Fredrickson, and I mentioned her in the first class. And it was a longitudinal field experiment in which participants were randomly assigned to an intervention group that self-generated positive emotions via loving kindness meditation, which I'm going to teach you in a minute, or to a waiting list control group. And then they looked at vagal tone as this proxy for help. Results suggest that positive emotions, positive social connections, and physical health influence one another in a self-sustaining upward spiral dynamic. So basically, people who were in the meditation group changed their vagal tone. You were literally able to impact your physical health, right? And I went to a conference 2 years ago, and I saw her and Sharon Salzberg speak. And she had done some more research, and this was also true for mindfulness meditation. Not to the same extent as loving kindness, but what they said that mattered was a consistent practice every day. And the longer you did it, obviously, the better the effect. But even just the more consistent that you were, that really helped. Vagal tone, okay. It is, it's a measure of how fast your heart beats when you take an in-breath and you take an out-breath. That's a chance for your heart to relax. So people who are really stressed will have it reversed, where they're not relaxing on the out-breath. Their heart's not taking a break on the out-breath, and that's causing damage, right? This is a very simplistic way of putting it. But the vagal tone is measuring your heart rate variability in a way, so it's also called HRV for heart rate variability. And there's apps that you can get to measure your heart rate variability. But Olympic athletes, really serious athletes, use it to train because it indicates your health for the day. So people do it right when they wake up, and it indicates, should you train really hard or should you be relaxing, like you don't want to be damaging. So anyway, loving kindness meditation increases your vagal tone, which is your physical health. All right, it's helping you deal with stress. Okay, so there's this website here called Positivity Resonance. It's one of Barbara Fredrickson's website, and you can go there and she can lead you through like a 20-minute loving kindness meditation. But I'm going to give you the 5-year-old version that I use with my children and that I use myself, and it's super quick, and I really like it. So I think it's, let me turn the camera. I think it's really good to always start with a couple minutes of mindfulness. I'll even just do one, where I'm sitting and I'm mindful for a minute, just to get me in the right place. And then there's 4 key phrases, and you can find many different variations, like, so this isn't the end all be all, just this is one of them. And it's, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, and may you be relaxed. I think it's at ease, but relaxed makes more sense to my 5-year-old. So we start with somebody we love, somebody that we feel just, with this unadulterated love. It could be your child, your dog, your cat, your grandmother, preferably somebody you don't have any complications with, And what we're going to do is we're just going to silently say, may this person feel safe. May this person be happy. May this person be healthy. And may this person be relaxed. When you think of each of these things, really try to envision them feeling safe, being happy, being healthy, and being relaxed. Okay, next we're going to do it for ourselves. May I feel safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. And may I be relaxed. And now we're going to do it for someone we feel neutral towards, whether you're positive or negative. So may this neutral person feel safe. May this neutral person be happy. May this neutral person be healthy. May this neutral person be relaxed. Okay, now I want you to think of somebody that you have some negative feelings toward. So maybe you're in a disagreement, or they've done something to hurt you, or you generally just don't like them. And you're now going to repeat these 4 phrases for that person. May they feel safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they be relaxed. And lastly, we're going to do it for all sentient beings all over the world. May everyone feel safe. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. May everyone be relaxed. Okay. How was that? Easy for some, hard for others. Hmm?
I kind of like comment like praying, like after like saying like make someone something. And it's just like make someone feel safe.
Yeah, you can definitely incorporate that in. Incorporating that something that's meaningful. The idea is that you're evoking compassion for a person, right? And it's easy for the people we love and not so easy for the people that we don't, right? It's really interesting which ones we get hung up on. Like I'm pretty cool, like wishing them to feel safe and relaxed, but like not so cool wishing that they're healthy. Especially if I think they're doing damaging things to people around the world. I'm like, like that's, like that's a sticking point for me. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And that's not such a great thing, but it's interesting, like where it sticks for me, or like where it's like hard. And it's okay, like doesn't mean I'm a bad person or anything's wrong, but like, that's a knot I can work on. Anybody else find it hard for the person let me get up here so I can see the comments up here too. Anyone find it hard for the person that they're a negative person? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I felt myself like trying to rush through saying those things, like, yeah, maybe say happy, whatever.
Yeah, right. When it's the person, yeah, when it's the negative person just rushing through, like, get this over with. Right. Yeah, I know. It's hard to sit with it. Another thing that I think that's really hard is to generate it towards ourselves. So you're supposed to start with self, but I find for me, I always, if I can find someone I love first, then it's easier to turn inward. And I mean, there's even been some days it's really hard to generate for myself. And so I'll imagine my kids saying it to me. Like, and that means more something than me saying it, because I feel like I'm just kind of like, yeah, or rushing through it, or like to get that really deep meaning. And so it's like to feel another person saying it towards me is also, I think, can be powerful. But I find it really hard to, sometimes to generate for the self. Okay, so yeah, online, it was hard for the negative person, but freeing and peaceful at the same time. Yes, that is the goal, right? Generates patience and forgiveness, useful to generate peace in the world. That one felt long but relaxing as well. Okay, so just really quickly, the way I do it with kids is I say it to them and I say it with their name, and then I say, who do you want to say it for? And they pick a couple kids in their class and we say it for them. And we're not really to the point where we're talking about like who maybe they're not getting along with. But if I know that they're not getting along with someone, or maybe they had a rough day with their sibling, then then you can do it there. But again, there I'm just trying to practice that and getting them in the habit of sort of thinking that way, but not really doing the full exercise. And I got that off of there's an institute, Berkeley Greater Good Science, something like that, and they have gratitude conferences. They do a lot of really neat stuff, but I just came across a video of somebody saying this is how you do it with children. And I knew the 20-minute version, and this was the like 3-minute version, and I was like, perfect, that works for my time schedule much better. So okay, all right. Okay, so to end this week, just a quote: 1,000 times my mind wandered, and 1,001 times I brought it back. That's the goal. So practice this week. 1 minute of mindfulness meditation or loving kindness or the 10-second breathing. And maybe you even want to switch it up. But the idea is that just a couple times during the day, just to get a practice, get a feeling for these and see what works for you, And again, I think the key thing to making a habit or getting into it is using primers. Like I get on the train, I do a minute of breathing. For me, I get to my office, I sit in my chair before I even go to my desk and look at my computer. I sit in my chair and I do meditation, right? It's not possible for me to do it in the morning, right? Because somebody always gets up early. I don't have the peace and quiet, right? But when I get to my office, that's where I do. Or sometimes when I drop the kids off from school and I'm sitting in the car before I even get on the train. So there's certain cues, like I've done this now and now this is going to happen. So that's the key to finding something that works for you. Okay, I think, big thing next week, really important. You're going to get an email from us. You have to take a survey before you come next week. It's the VIA Institute Character Strengths Test. And it's going to tell you your 24 character strengths. And next week, we're going to be working with that. So you want to print it out and bring it with you, or copy and paste it and put it in your phone, whatever you do.
Which one?
The VIA. And we're going to send you the link. And so you'll get it. But next week, it's all going to be based on working with your top. So next week, so the next 4 weeks, we're going to start working with your character strengths. So this was just a general intro into positive psych, the first 3 weeks, and now we're going to work with character strengths. So we'll send out a couple of reminders, but that's what we're working with next week.
And once you go online, the airports.
Oh, and online, you guys take the test and bring the test to the meeting too. And that's it. Any questions, let us know. Let's go down. Yeah, I said the VIA. VIA. Namaste. Very good, Elaine. Okay. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks.